I'm probably gonna be the boring tech guy tonight, so sorry for that, but I hope that's why you're here. So I'm gonna be talking about what you need to be doing in terms of technology, mostly infrastructure related, to make those routes that Thomas mentioned, and that Sebastian is looking for. So the challenges he's having on technology, but maybe very quickly, I'm from Dashdot. Dashdot is mentioned a few times. We were quite a lot big early stage startups. We used to build some MVPs as well. We don't do that a lot anymore. We help startups actually get beyond the MVP and build mature products, build the entire infrastructure tech stack around it. And our next event will be around agentic engineering. So how do you build your own agents, building custom stuff, which is actually the next step after what I'm going to tell you right now. So, band theory, Sebastian got pretty far. He got it to work for also this current paying customers and for himself. The issue is that he breaks stuff a lot. The collection database don't quite at the point, I think, I'm not sure. So there are a lot of issues while working with Lovable in production environment. Functionality breaks, data gets wiped, users suddenly get these weird bugs you can't debug because they don't happen yourselves. So there's a lot of frustration. You go down a deep rabbit hole in the vibe going vortex, I call it, where you just keep on prompting like this isn't working, you have no idea why that is. I had a recent example where a customer of ours and they had a very complex authentication state issue, and API calls would just fail sometimes. Pages would reload, users would get really frustrated, but an application didn't work, but only sometimes. There was no clear reason why. Turns out the state manager for the authentication layer, so the login, was really weirdly noticed and had a lot of issues, so we had to refactor it manual. That took only like at this 20 minutes, and that really was fixed. Every issue they had related to the DBI calls it before. So sometimes Lovable just goes off the beaten path. Anyway, the biggest issue there is trust. Trust is, but in my opinion, from three different perspectives. So you as founders, builders, we don't trust your own code, you don't trust Lovable anymore, you don't trust what you're putting out there. That's the first perspective. Second one is your users. They kind of get skeptical. This is built on Lovable. Then you see it sometimes. Is this safe? Is this trustworthy? Do I trust my beta when this works tomorrow? So a lot of trust issues there. And mainly for some of you also very important investors and stakeholders. If you're working for a large enterprise and you need stakeholders internally to be on board with you building something Lovable, yeah, they will have some questions as well. So they probably don't trust what you're doing by. Now, I've set up this type of framework on how you can build more trust surrounding or around your Lovable app. I put it in 4 pillars. First one, ownership, reliability, then control and insight. I'll walk you through it and I'll give you a technical high-level architecture on each step you had to take to build those pillars. So first of all, ownership. Most of you probably have this type of architecture. It's you, routing to Lovable, and Lovable serves your users with something as an end result. Now, that's where we get into the ownership part. I think both Sebastian and Thomas mentioned it. One of the first steps is to connect GitHub. So get the code that Lovable generates out of Lovable, put it in your own version control system. Currently it's GitHub, that's the only option. I think Gitbucket was recently added, not sure. Most of the people use GitHub, but make sure you have the code available in your own Docker repository. So maybe just a quick check of hands, who did this connection already? Okay, so not everybody, but a lot of people. Now, it was also mentioned that allows you to use coding tools like Cursor, Cloth Code, and coding tools. I'm not going to be talking about them tonight. Next event will be around agent engineering, but this allows you to continue working outside of Lovable. Now,
One of the biggest issues related to trust and ownership is, of course, the security stuff. So there are a lot of memes out there every day. There's a new one, a new vulnerability, a new issue. So a lot of issues surrounding security. It's also been mentioned that IQdo is a decent solution. Now, it also gets ignored because it's highly technical. So one of the first things I would do if you get some traction, some validation, connect GitHub, connect IQdo, and just use some guy, some girl, somebody with some technical knowledge to do a quick review. Usually, the most common security issues are very easily fixed. It doesn't cost you a lot of money, and it saves you a lot of headache in terms of, is this secure? You can kind of tell people like, okay, we did a security review, and it also protects you from leaking sensitive personal information. That's actually something you see quite a lot. Security is one thing, personal information is another one. So if you have highly sensitive data, make sure that API endpoints are checked, because sometimes it's possible that nodes leave role access to stuff, so you have different roles in your application, and it happens a lot that any authenticated user can just access sensitive data even though they shouldn't be. So IQdo as a developer doesn't have to take long to the check. Maybe GitHub. Does everybody know GitHub? Yeah, okay, let me skip it. IQdo, does everybody know IQdo? Okay, skip it as well. Next up, the reliability part. So this is where things get interesting, and that's actually where Sebastian is running into issues now. So he doesn't have separate environments from this level of environments. Lovable is production, development, testing, everything is involved. That's one of the first things Moise and Oda also did, is split up the production and the development environment. So what we typically do when we have Lovable customers coming in and they want some advice, first step we take is we split out Lovable as a development environment and production on a separate set. The way we do it is we use GitHub, and I'm not sure if everybody can follow. If you can't figure with the branches stuff, just raise your hand, and I'll explain a little bit more. But Git allows you, the version control system allows you to set up different version histories in different branches. So you can have two different versions of the same code base at the same time. That's the first step to take. You connect Lovable to the development version of your code. And the separate environment that we set up using the cell and Supabase, so a different database, different hosting provider, making sure that everything's evenly separated between environments. And we connect it to a production version of the code base. That allows you to still develop using Lovable. We can add new features, do whatever you want. You can break this, you can clean the database. Everything is possible, but it will never affect any user actually using your firewall. The production environment is completely separate. So that's one of the first steps to take to make it reliable. Now, the single trick that works for Lovable, because they used to have, a very short amount of time, an own solution on their local cloud, a test setup and a live setup in the same project. They canceled it end of March, or too many issues, a lot of feedback, they're building a new version of it. There's no timeline or no announcement whatsoever when they will build it. Now, what they do have, and it has been in there for I think about a year and a half, is the connection to GitHub. You can choose which branch it says to. So that's the way to set it up to develop branch, separate version of the code base, and connect our production branch to a separate environment so it's secure. Does that make sense? Questions so far? Good question. Yeah. An issue that we encountered is that when you reprompt to Lovable, it restructures the whole code. So how do you merge the project in GitHub when the Lovable completely rechanges the code? Yeah. Yeah. So that's more architecturally on the code base itself. That is definitely a challenge. But what we try to do is we refactor a lot of the code bases that Lovable has generated. We put it in clear, separate components, and it needs a lot of code examples, and then it will also take on those examples as architectural true, I can say. Comes the Bible of how they should structure pop-ups. And then you also need the macros, so you have your agent skills, the markdown configuration, that Lovable also reads, and it tells you, it instructs the LLM on how to structure the code prompt. So that's more the agentic engineering, so how you structure code basically. And then you get risk conflicts when you word the Lovable and do things on the side, having cursor, for example. Not sure how Sebastian has experienced it. Sure. Maybe a good question asking. Does everybody know Vercel? Great. Supabase as well, I think. So Lovable has its own cloud solution now. It's basically Supabase, but it's open source version. They integrated within their own stack. It's still Supabase, so what we do is we set up separate Supabase project instance that's connected to the collection environment, and it gets synced through all of the code that's in the GitHub repository. It gets synced, so it has the same structure, the same functions, the same functionality as your platform.
Do you advise to set it like separately from day one, or is it easy to migrate from the Supabase inside the boot? And then
the cloud one is tricky. It requires development knowledge, but the Supabase is trying to lock you in on their cloud. You can do it, but it requires technical knowledge from how to connect to the database, migrate data, etc. So it's possible. But what we do is we recommend having a different Supabase project instance. And within that project, you can set up different environments. So this is an easy example with development and production. Typically, we also have a separate staging where everything gets tested right on production, but not actually really uses. And that's something you can do within one Supabase project, set up different environments as well. The cloud infrastructure of Lovable, that's what we use for the development code. So the next step is getting control. And control means making sure that if I make a change in Lovable, that everything still works, that my users still have the same experience, that nothing is perfect. The way to do that, and then things get a bit more technical and related to the code base, is to add automated testing and continuous integration deployment, so that the tests run as a kind of safety check before anything gets deployed to production as well. It requires some technical knowledge, setting up the code, etc. But integrating tests basically means that all of the essential functionality gets tested automatically from A to Z. So whenever you make a change, all of those tests run again before anything gets pushed to production. And that ensures you, okay, everything that's needed within an application that used to work still works as it should. This requires a bit of development knowledge. You can do it with Vibe coding as well, probably through Cursor or Claude Code, but then you're not 100% sure that the tests are actually testing the right stuff. The last one is insights. So this is something that's often overlooked, but getting real insights of how your application, how the application is experienced by main users, whether there are issues in production, etc. You need to gain some insights, and there are a lot of good tools that are easily integrated that give you real data, how users could experience your product and where problems are. What we typically include is PostHog. It's started as a user behavior tracking product, so product analytics in the broad sense, things user conversion, funnels, etc. And then Sentry for real error tracking in production. So you can see when something in your code is broken and how it impacts users. Does it impact one user, 100, 10,000? That's the way you do it. PostHog. Does everybody know PostHog? Probably not. So they started as more of a customer product analytics tool, but they've evolved into a full suite of product analytics and product insights. It's really easy to set up, and it gives you immediate insights like a Google Analytics, but for your products. So I highly recommend to check it out. It's also not that difficult to set it up in a Lovable project, and it gives you a lot of additional insights beyond what Lovable gives you by default. Sentry is really checking running code in production. Where are these breaking that should not be broken? It gives you a lot of insights, again, very developer-oriented, but even if you don't have a developer right now working on, it's still interesting to see where the bugs are, because then you have an overview for the developer to fix later.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is there something you use as a monitoring tool that user errors is breaking or not?
Yeah, exactly. So it monitors for production errors in the entire code base. So it also gives you a sense of how important something is. If you have 10 users, it's probably not that important to include this. I will tell you which of these steps are important in which phase. But if you have 100 or 10,000 users, an error might occur only once with one user. That's probably not a big thing. You shouldn't spend too much time with. If it impacts 80% of your users, yeah, that's the issue. That should be fixed as soon as possible. And these tools give us the first types of insights. So to give you the full picture again, it's highly simplified, of course, but the best practice is to split up Lovable and the production environment and do it by using a separate version control system like GitHub. So code is the basics, and it can be used to set up two different environments. Any questions on this diagram? Anything you want to know? Great. Maybe the next step, by the way, that's what Thomas in class did for Maurice and Ora, is to remove Lovable altogether and put your own development workflow in there. So you will see whatever cloth codes or cursor or some other agentic coding tool, and that replaces the code. That's actually what we're talking about. I think of next event hopefully. Okay, so if all of those components are in place, you will have a high level of trust to call the three profiles for yourself, for your users, and for potential investors and stakeholders. Now, when you do which step? That's probably the next question. So I divided it into three phases. First one, validation. So the second one, early scale. And the third one, the full product. Let's say that's when you typically have or have a need for hiring a first engineer or having some type of competency. The first two probably are up to you as a faculty. So validation, that's kind of where Sébastien is right now. He's at the end of validation and starting to go to early scale. What do you do in validation? The validation part will all out, can I get anyone to care? If there's no traction, no users, nobody interested, then yeah, why bother investing time? So the only thing I would do in that stage is invest time in ownership. So that means making sure the GitHub connection is there and maybe do a security review with the developer, just quickly high level. If you move to early scale, the question becomes, okay, I have some first users, they're begging, seems to go well, but can I keep them? Because if I continuously break stuff and in the application doesn't work anymore, and they keep asking for features, but I can't deliver, yeah, that's gonna be challenge. So that's when I will work on the reliability and splitting out the Lovable environment and production environment. Then the last one, the full product, that's where you feel like, okay, we have traction or users coming in, we need to take it seriously, we need more engineering horsepower, we need to set up systems that allow us to go faster in development, but with the assurance that it still works. That's where you need to add the control parts and needs. And that's it. So just the overview, if there are any more questions, then that's it.